Rupesh Chokshi. I'm based here in Dallas, Texas. I'm the Vice President for Product Strategy and Innovation at AT&T. My team and I are, waking up every day and focusing on innovation, the next generation of products and services. We're making tremendous amount of investments in our fiber footprints, in our 5G expansion, and we're thinking about how do you bring automated, self-service, software-centric products utilizing those core assets? How do we unleash the capabilities? So a lot of focus is on 5G, on edge, on cybersecurity. We go deeper into the verticals of healthcare, manufacturing, public sector, retail, financial services, and really kind of bring a differentiated sort of solution to the marketplace for our customers. In prior roles, I have led large portfolios of cybersecurity and solutions, SD-WAN, managed Wi-Fi, et cetera. So I'm fairly familiar with how enterprise customers are sort of, consuming the technology for their private networks, and whether it is for their customer locations or the customer edge, or the network edge and sort of, broader wide area networks that are global in nature. And we see tremendous, opportunity with IoT and the expansion and the focus on edge, which is sort of, rapidly evolving. So a little bit about my role and my team. So first and foremost, let's start with 5G, right? It's nationwide, it's available. We're reaching 255 million people in more than 16,000 cities and towns. A lot of investment going in the space, as you can imagine, with the millimeter wave rollouts, the C-band rollouts that are happening. And when you step back and look at just the high speed, the geographic coverage, the availability that the network provides for our customers, a lot of new use cases are emerging, right? So we're going to focus a little bit more on the enterprise customers or mid-market customers who are manufacturing, healthcare, industrials, retailers, financial services, you name it. Across the board, what they're doing is they're thinking about how do I take the capabilities of lower latency and this kind of massive connectivity as I'm going about IoT. I have requirements on the network with, speeds and feeds. I want to do a smart factory or a smart city, or I want to look at my business processes very differently. How do I take advantage of the network capabilities? So we are seeing that earlier in the year, we launched AT&T Private 5G Edge in partnership with Microsoft. This was our foray into sort of going deeper into the customer edge, utilizing licensed and unlicensed spectrum capabilities. So over there, the idea was a lot of the smaller footprint locations, whether it is in manufacturing, as I was talking about, or in healthcare, or even, car dealerships and other storefronts that are engaging with their end customers in different ways, are utilizing computer vision, right? So we see tremendous amount of video cameras and AI software and ML associated with that to really think about how can you utilize the video and computer vision to do a lot of the daily tasks and the automation associated with that, right? And the 5G network will play a very important role. Goes back to this example that, low latency, high speed, processing at the edge of the network is a very, very prominent, viable, and available use case that we're seeing customers deploy. We're also seeing, just a number of video sensors, right? Or just a number of sensors and number of endpoints that are connecting to the network. If you think about the healthcare industry, right, there's so much opportunity to really change the patient experience, change and utilize this technology to really help with, aging in place or, the shortage of the workforce that we're dealing with. So our customers continue to focus on utilizing cellular technology, and with 5G, it's sort of, on steroids, as they say, the adoption, the use cases across all the different verticals that I mentioned and many, many more. this idea of, autonomous everything is significantly powered by the vision of 5G and edge capabilities that go hand in hand. So I see that, from an application perspective. I see the customers adopting those. I see the entire continuum. So, sometimes people feel that, oh, all of this is just for the Fortune 10 or the Fortune 50, customers. No, I see that, for even, smaller size customers who might have a single location, but I could be a warehouse, I could be a manufacturer, I could be a clinic, and I can deploy these technologies and take advantage of the technology to significantly improve my business outcomes. And typically the business outcomes are, better end user experience. It's tied to productivity of the resources. It's tied to creating a new experience for the end user. Security is definitely, top of mind, right? I mean, it's a boardroom conversation. When I get to speak with our customers through the advisory councils that we have, it's top of mind. It's important to the CEO. It's important to the CISO, the CIO, the CTO, the CMO, because there is a brand impact associated. So while 5G standards are evolving and they'll continue to evolve, there's a lot of learnings from 4G and the scale at which 4G networks are operating. What we have done is we have taken those learnings and architected the 5G networks in a way that they are a lot more inherently secure. There's encryption of information already taking place for certain, types of data elements. And then we are utilizing, that capability to make at least the network aspect of that, more secure than ever before. Now, security is something that is not, one and done, right? If I think about it from a business and an enterprise perspective, right, you have to prepare for a lot of different security threats. And if you're going to continue to expand with your IoT endpoints, it creates a very different expanded, attack surface. So customers need to think about, how am I going to do patch management? What is my vulnerability exposure? Do I understand all of the data transmission, the flows? Because in a way, when I talked about 5G, we talked about ultra high speed, right? So sometimes you can, that speed can work, for both cases, right? In terms of helping the customer with the use cases, but also that speed can be utilized for sort of, kind of by the bad folks or the bad guys, as we say, to utilize and kind of, infiltrate into the networks faster. So if you think about, from a cybersecurity perspective and say, a key takeaway, when we published the AT&T Cybersecurity Insights report, Security at the Speed of 5G, it highlighted for us through that interaction that 76% of the respondents expect to see new threats, right, that are going to emerge from the 5G implementations that they're going to do, because of the attack surface is very different. And 24% of them thought that it would be sort of, volumetric increase in the existing threats, right? So new networks, new capabilities, a very different way of looking at it. And I think it's, again, look, it's a shared model. You have the responsibilities with AT&T, you have the responsibilities with the enterprise, because you have to look at security as a multi-layer approach. You have to bring in concepts of zero trust and many other sort of, capabilities and frameworks that are going to help really kind of lessen the risk. And as I mentioned, security is something that's not one and done. So both from a 5G network perspective, from an enterprise implementation, and the evolution of the endpoint technology or security technology or threat management, vulnerability, the list goes on, you have to continue to focus and invest in this space. The customer edge and the network edge, the way we think about it is deploying capabilities within the customer location, customer boundaries, is how we think about it. Going deeper, whether it is a a branch, whether it is a retail office, whether it's a hospital, whether it is a manufacturing location, whether it is a storefront, whether it is a bank, so many different use cases we start to think about. And then the network edge is more around sort of, think about the metros and, think about how that network edge can serve multiple customers and have inherent capability to deliver both on the speed and the latency, but also have a very sort of, focused mindset on security and making sure that we are deploying the right kind of apparatus, because these are multi-tenancy type of networks, and preserving and protecting the customers that ride on this infrastructure. As data is spreading across multiple locations, right, and you see information flowing back and forth from multiple clouds, public clouds, private clouds, I think the types of endpoints and devices are emerging. And historically, traditional security thinking is more, protecting the sort of, the perimeter, or trusting a device inside the network, etc. I think is less effective, and that's where the zero trust model or framework comes into play, because it helps you shift with the edge computing and what you want to do, but also, it kind of gives you this mindset that, look, you cannot trust any interaction, you cannot trust any transaction, so you have to, apply the principles of it, right? And, I keep going back to the broader attack surfaces, more different types of applications, the information flows, the speed at which the data is moving. We did a lot of work last year, on SASE and Secure Access Services Edge, which kind of, takes on the zero trust model and starts to look at, a very different perimeter from an enterprise perspective. And SASE is important to our customers. We are focused in that space. We continue to expand the portfolio, and we think about kind of like zero trust, focusing on securely accessing all of these sort of, resources, whether it's a network location, it's a user, it's a device, and then enforcing the access controls, enforcing and the policies, continuously inspecting, monitoring, logging, threat management, proactive, reactive, you name it, to be able to do that. And then if you think about, tying some of that back to 5G, network slicing or other capabilities within 5G that will deliver at a micro segmentation level, a very granular level, information flows, data flows. So now you can kind of, take that security or zero trust framework and start to sort of, apply it. So that is what I am seeing when it comes to that. Another example is, when I go a little bit deeper into the customer edge with the private 5G environments, right? So we see good momentum in that space, with more and more customers thinking about how are they going to adopt, but also adapt to those private 5G environments. And we've done some work with a 5G managed advanced security solution capabilities, where you can take certain next-gen firewall functionality, put it in conjunction with our multi-access computer, MEC capabilities, and then you look at all the different protocols and the data flows, and you start to look at, behavioral analytics to see, okay, are these devices doing what they're supposed to do? You look at many different lenses from a security perspective to process that data, to really start to think about, okay, there are going to be a lot of IoT devices that might be sort of, clientless or headless. And how do I still know that those devices and those sensors and other information is performing within my zero trust framework? And how do I isolate, and how do I sort of, take rapid action? So it's an exciting space. Look, we've done a lot of work. We have existing solutions for our customers, and we'll continue to expand. So, we've been on this journey, right, of IoT connections, and every time I pick up some report and I read it and I see, bigger numbers, right? I remember those days where it was going to be 1 billion endpoints to then 10 billion to now 20 billion, 30 billion endpoints. And I'm starting to see that, right? So, connected cars or connected vehicles, that is the reality, right? We are deploying, every single new car that's rolling out, the EVs that are rolling out, they're all connected in some fashion or shape. And then from there, you start to kind of go into other spaces, and healthcare is a prime example. There's going to be everything that we do over there is going to be connected. And why? Because that information flow is very important. Just the speed at which the doctors have access to the patient information and what they can do is so important. So then the securing those connections becomes very important, because the type of information, the regulatory compliance with HIPAA or PCI or GDPR, et cetera, starts to kick into place. I think 5G will offer more, privacy of the identity. The connections will have a lot more sort of, encrypted information flow. The identities are encrypted, and there is not any exposure, but you can also check on that, kind of device, and is that been compromised or not compromised. And I went to talk a little bit about sort of, how do you utilize, behavioral analytics and other methodologies to further look at, what is the algorithm. If I have a manufacturing location, maybe the first step is to just go and do a discovery, right? How many IoT endpoints do I have? And what is that kind of like, base operating systems that they are working on? Do I need to go and do, a vulnerability scan, a known scan? Do I need to go do patch management immediately? So you have to go and do some of these things from a discovery perspective, and then utilize and make sure that you're taking full advantage of the encryption that the cellular technology provides, and you take advantage of network slice and other capabilities that then provides even more sort of end-to-end secure flow of the information. So a lot of great opportunities. I will say that I am a little bit worried, as I do feel that OT and IoT security is a challenge and an opportunity. Challenge being, the pace at which new endpoints are coming onto the network is far greater than the pace at which the security and the apparatus and the software that is available. But by the same token, the opportunity is that we can collectively go and focus on IoT and OT environments and really sort of, lock them down. And we've seen in the past, whether it is ransomware or other sort of, malicious intentions, that they're now kind of past the classic IT. They're not worried about my or your laptop or the data. It is going more deeper into the manufacturing plants or into the pipelines that are, traversing petrol or gasoline or water supplies. You're going into the airports and the infrastructure of that. So it's a little bit more, operational focused, and that's where a lot of IoT, OT needs to be significantly secured. Leave it on sort of, the security is not an afterthought, right? You don't really, try to go do a project and you say, okay, now I have 1 more week left before deploying it. Let me engage my security teams, et cetera, right? So security is a mindset. It needs to be embedded into the designs of what we do every day. And from an innovation perspective, look, I am, convinced, and I think the industry is too, is the 5G innovations are going to be driven in the enterprise space, right? So the customer opportunity, whether it is tied to the mobile edge, whether it is tied to the customer edge, whether it is tied to the network edge, is going to continue to do that, right? It's going to be growing the capabilities in the network that come closer to you from an endpoint perspective, deliver on the low latency, high speed application experiences that we want. And what we need to do is do a lot more threat detection, inspection of the key sources, etc., for all of these devices that are coming on board with the zero trust framework that I mentioned before. And we're going to continue to be focusing in that space. Kind of network security is very important. We'll continue to focus in that space. The amount of data that traverses on our sort of global networks is massive, right? It's 400 plus petabytes of data every day on an average day. So the kind of apparatus that we have to put forward will require the innovation of AI, ML, and the scale at which we're doing. I think 5G, with a lot of promise on network slicing, private routing, uplink, there's so much feature functionality with APIs that is going to continue to kind of be brought forward. So I'm excited about those innovations, but by the same token, as you make the network even more sort of, programmable, you have to keep security at the core of it and make sure that you're not opening up the network for the enterprise or the macro networks to more sort of, vulnerabilities or attack surfaces. So kind of keep that innovation going and keep security and cybersecurity at the core of it, so you can really focus on the outcomes and not worry about the exposure.